Good evening, Foxes fans, and welcome to Tuesday Night Tactics. It's me, Anil. I'm stepping in for Lox. He's actually having a good night off. I think he deserves one. But I am joined by an excellent substitute, much better than some of the substitutes we brought on over the weekend. It's Denmark's finest. It's Andreas, LCFC Duck. How are you tonight,
I'm
Andreas?
doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you for the kind words. I will say I am. It's bittersweet looking forward to the analysis, right? I'm happy being on. I love discussing tactics with you and Neil, but I'm not looking forward for to have to be today a disappointing game against Newcastle, even if we didn't expect to win the game 4-0 and Danny Ward on the pitch. Never what we want to see.
Absolutely. Well, look, firstly, good evening to everyone in chat and all of our viewers. Thanks for turning up. And you know what? I have massive respect because you know what? It's easy to turn up when you've had a good time. But I sometimes think you actually learn more in life from your mistakes than you do from your successes. And a little bit of a spoiler for you, Andreas, there were a lot of mistakes in this match. So I think for this one, you really are going to need your blue tinted glasses on to get anything out of this one because it was a painful watch. And we're going to go through that right now. So everyone in chat, do feel free to put anything you want. I think there will be a lot of things to go through. We love to be challenged. I've got Andreas on as well. And I have to say something I really like about Mr. Duck here is he's got a great tactical eye. He often spots things that I miss. So he actually hasn't seen this. And I'm actually looking forward to him picking up on some of things. He's actually my professor today and will be marking my homework.
Crazy.
Hopefully he'll give me a good grade.
Big words. But yeah, go on.
So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's take it away and let's dissect what was a painful 4-0 defeat at St. James's Park. Let's take it away. So let's look at the stats. And Andreas did just have a quick glance at this before we started. And he was already like, oh, God, it's horrific. It really was. So if you look at this, this is as one-sided a game as you'll ever see. Newcastle with an absolutely whopping 3.78 XG. Leicester, we didn't really lay a glove on Newcastle the whole match. That's, I think, something that was very disappointing. Very low XG. 5 big chances for Newcastle. 27 shots we gave away. Crazy number. We only got 4 away ourselves. 7 goalkeeper saves. And that's in fact, we had Danny Ward in goal. But even before that, how many did Mads
That's just the first half. That's just the first half, really. I mean, I did see him make a few saves. I've heard. I didn't get too much of the second half. And he certainly didn't make any saves initially. But yeah, I think... I think if we're grasping at straws, right, at least it's still less shots than we gave up to West Ham on the Root's first game. So,
yeah, for sure. But I think that's going to be the thing is that we've got to bring those shots down because the thing is that, you know, West Ham might only have scored 1, but we knew that there was the chance that you know, they could have done a lot more. And in this game, we played against a team that had higher quality and then they took a lot of them. Quack to you, by the way, Doug, which of course is what we want everyone in chat to say when you see Andre. So well up on you. So let's just take a look at the ratings here. You can see that Newcastle scored extremely highly. Their entire front 6 had really good scores. Lewis Hall will come on to in a moment as well, had an excellent game for them. As for Leicester, it was pretty criminal throughout. Our best player actually got substituted at half-time, which says it all. Connor Cody, they moved his position a bit later on, but he had a day to forget. It was pretty poor from Leicester. And we'll go into why Cody had a bad game, because I don't think he was set up to succeed in a game like this. So let's come to the starting lineup, and this is how we turned up. And I'd actually like to get your thoughts on this, Andreas. So you must have seen the starting lineup yourself. And of course, the big sort of surprise was that Facundo Buonanotte did not start. I think the double pivot, we were all worried about it, but that's probably the best that we could do. So when you saw this, what did you think about that lineup?
I thought it was good. Obviously, I really agree with it. Just one major surprise, right, is the fact that Buonanotte was dropped. He was undroppable under Cooper when he played. He was obviously in brilliant form, able to carry the ball. So many good things to say about the kid. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to say if it's McAteer or Mavididi who took his place, because it's one of those wingers who had to drop out and then allow the space for Buonanotte. So I think that's the only surprise. Otherwise, I think with the resources available, remembering the injuries, remembering the suspension of Samare, this was the strongest 11 he could put out, except for Buonanotte. So yeah, I was open to see what Root had cooked for us, and I don't know if Buonanotte would have changed much, because I think our issues more so lied in the defensive half, and especially in those 2 number 6s, Skip and Choudhury. First time together, none of them really having that sharpness built up, and you can definitely see some rust on those two.
Absolutely. I was going to say first time together and possibly the last based on this performance. For me, I wondered if he put McAteer on the right hand side as a nod to try and cover Anthony Gordon, who we knew coming into this match was likely to be their most dangerous outlet, and having a bit more defensive work on that side. But as we'll see later on in the game, he actually moved Mavadidi over. And yeah, this is what Sean's saying. So I understand why Buonanotte wasn't starting. Yeah. The defensive cover was necessary, even if we got ripped open. I think I agree. That's probably why I went to it. And just want to say, thank you to Locks. Also, go for it, Andreas. Yeah.
No, but this is exactly what we're highlighting here. Right? We discussed this as well, just in the preview, me and Luke and Locks on the channel. This was the argument, right? Do you want to have the offensive flair of one not able to carry the ball, go for these shots, threaten even from outside the box? Or would you have that extra two-man marking down on Anthony Gordon? What really did sad me, though, is even though I think it is a good and smart decision to two-man Anthony Gordon, I still heard his name too many times from the commentator. I still saw him do too much, especially when we decided to sacrifice some offensive ability to two-man him, and we weren't able to really get him unlocked.
Yeah, we have a whole section about Anthony Gordon, who was extremely good in this game, I must say. This was Newcastle's lineup, and it was among the strongest that they could do. Interesting lineup from them. I would say that their midfield three is excellent. I'm a big fan of Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Linton. Tonali, after his kind of betting scandal, has actually, I think, grown into the team quite well. Isak up front is brilliant, cost a lot of money, but I think he's one of the best strikers outside the top four teams. Funny how, Jacob Murphy is someone who a lot of Newcastle fans think is a championship player, but he absolutely rinsed us in this game. I did feel that at the back, there was maybe something we could get at. They actually had the Dubravka in goal. And I think it's disappointing that our low XG was like that, because I felt that we should have been able to test this keeper a bit more. What did you make of their lineup before we started?
I think I had a quick chat with one of the guys I play Football Manager with weekly in an online save, a few guys from England, and one of them is a Newcastle fan, and he mentioned if there was a time that Vardy should have a party against them, it's a lie. This is the defensive lineup they have, right? Dubravka, Sharp, Burn, all players playing while they were even fighting to not get relegated just before they got taken over. Or I believe then Burn came in right after. In that season, they were fighting off relegation initially. Lewis Hall and Romenzo, I think both fullbacks with potential, but who haven't reached that high ceiling yet, or at the very least the consistency. So I thought it was a backline we should be able to test and pressure. But what I will say, except for Jacob Murphy, I think it was a fraud. Absolutely scandalous rating he's had. He was shite. Absolute dog water. Other than that, though, it's world class, man. Anthony Gordon, Isak, Bruno Guimaraes, Tonali, Joe Linton, all these players are class, man. They are class. It's a brilliant front six, except for Jacob Murphy. Absolute trash, that bloke. I don't know why people are. Anil, I'm sorry. I don't know. He did obviously score 2 goals, but he could have had 5 on any given game if his technique was better.
But he's still got his 2. But I think, it's fair to say here, the midfield battle was always going to be ours to lose. All 3 of theirs.
That's a fair comparison, right? Skip Chutter to Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, and Joe Linton. There's a bit of a class difference there.
Yeah, I mean, Bruno Guimaraes is worth more than all of our midfield put together, pretty much. And he really showed his class in this one. So, let's get into it with the first half analysis. And actually, we didn't start the game too badly. That was the interesting thing. So normally when you're away at St. James's Park, you're going to be up against it and they try and get the crowd on them. And I have to say that Newcastle coming into this game were not in the best form. So I think a few of us were optimistic. I actually thought we could get a draw depending on how we turned up in the game. And, for the first 10 minutes, we weren't looking too bad. See, what I want to do is just kind of show you Rude's style of play and what our kind of game plan was going forward. So here I've highlighted Skip, who actually started the game quite well, but I think he faded very badly as the game went on. But here's what he was supposed to do. So he's picked up the ball here on the half turn. I just want to show you that this is part of Rude's sort of system. He's really big on the passing triangles. So this is how we've kind of managed to engineer this chance in the first place. And now that he's got the ball, we can see he's turned out of trouble despite being under pressure. He's played it into his midfield partner, which was Hamza. And Hamza, you can see he's got a free passing lane to play into Bilal. You can see here's the 3-man passing triangle here. And there's another 3-man triangle up here. So he's played it into Bilal. Bilal's got plenty of time. He takes it in the half spin. And, something that I really like about Bilal is that he's always looking for that progressive pass as soon as possible and trying to play other people in. And he's good at spotting and executing the pass. So he gets the ball and dinks the ball over. And here you can see what Rude's trying to do. So when we make that pass, you'll see immediately that the rest of the team know it's time to go. And you'll see that here we go, a bit like the blue arrows. You've got McAteer, Vardy and Mavadidi, and they're all going to get on their bike. And here you're going to attack it. So here's the ball in the air. It's going to drop for McAteer. Vardy's going to hold his run to make sure he's onside, same as Mavadidi. McAteer tries to play a cross in, and this could have got Vardy in right on early on in the game. And fair play to Dan Burn. He's a bit of a big lump, but he goes in for a sliding tackle and he puts it out. But that was pretty decent play. And I was thinking, okay, not bad. We've already seen some interchange between Skip and Chowdhury. Looks like they have been training at some point this week, and perhaps we're going to do all right. It wasn't the worst pass, but unfortunately, Andreas, this was pretty much as good as it got all game, which is rather sad, being that that's 3 minutes in. So let's talk about Eddie Howe. It's interesting. I think Eddie Howe's undergone quite the renaissance. He did really well at Bournemouth, but it fell out towards the end of his time there. And a lot of people thought he was overrated. But you've got to say, in my opinion, I think he's done an amazing job at Newcastle. They might not be doing so well this season, but he's had a bit of a challenging time. What do you make of him?
I mean, as someone, right, who didn't know too much about his time in Bournemouth, I thought for a club that initially, just got taken over by the Saudis and wanted to punch against the top and really take them to battle, I thought Eddie Howe was a mid-table manager in a sense, right? That he was going to get them out of the relegation zone, keep them up, but he wasn't going to be able to push for these very high limits. And he has certainly proved that wrong the more I've learned about him. And my initial thought, even though for some outside of the UK, he wasn't the biggest of names, but he's I think he's a very good manager. I don't know if he's an elite manager, but he's certainly a very good manager, very capable. And yeah, I think he's done very, very good with Newcastle, even though he's had the money. He's been able to deliver a Champions League season, which was obviously massive for that club. But yeah, I think he's been really good.
Yeah, he's definitely instigated the style of play. And let's talk about that style of play. So when Newcastle are at their best, what they're kind of known for under Eddie Howe is they have this intense high press. I think they're the team that reminds me the most of sort of peak Jurgen Klopp Liverpool in the Premier League right now. Many of the other teams do still press, but not so many go for that rock and roll press as much as what Jurgen Klopp brought to the Premier League. But Newcastle under Eddie Howe, they kind of do. And it's funny how even Guardiola has said he hates playing Newcastle because it's like, if they play their way, it basically doesn't give you an opportunity to get going. And that's something that they were particularly good at. So, their style is to outrun and outfight the opposition and pin them back in so they can't ever get out. And then you overwhelm the opposition and then your superior quality is going to show and win the game. And I think the interesting thing about their style, it's a bit all or nothing. So I watched them against West Ham earlier in the season and they were pretty poor. And I think in that game, they just couldn't get going. They couldn't get their press going. And so it just looked like they were chasing shadows. But if they are on their game and they are hitting their challenges and winning them, then the game pans out a lot like what it did today, where they can really make inferior opposition look pretty poor. And I got to say that their style of play worked really well. Some of their key players were at it. They all did their job. And yeah, congratulations to Newcastle and to Eddie Howe. They did really, really good. So, as I say, this is their kind of style. It's this pressing game. Someone gets the ball and you can see, unsurprisingly, Joe Linton. This was from last season. But you can see with their system, it doesn't matter who they've got. They know when to press. They'll snap on you, try and win the ball back quickly and look to spring a counter-attack on transition. And this is something that they did a lot. So here we can go about midway through the first half. You can see that Mads is on the ball and you can see how many players they've got up and just how high they're pushing. And here Isak, even though he's got easy passing options, he could play it either to Cody or Vestergaard, he's still going to make the play and try and force him long. And I will say that I think something that I was a little bit irritated in this game is I do think that Mads, even though he had a good game, if this was Enzo, I think Enzo would have been screaming him from the touchline and telling him stop pumping it long. Because what would happen is that Newcastle would instigate their press, Mads would kick it long, and this would happen. They would just claim the ball back and the attack would keep coming back at us time and time again. Now, the reason why I think he's done that is when you've got an offensive press like this, I think that Ruud probably looked at the way Newcastle played and he said, look, even though we usually play out from the back against this team, and especially in the first half, don't take the risk. Like, if in doubt, kick it out. But I think that it didn't work so well for us. And I will show you, I'm actually going to do a bit of Brighton analysis in this game at the end as well. And I think we were much better at it there. So I think that's something as a team we have to practice. But yes, you can see here that, look, they're almost, if they were to play out to these, either one of the wide centre backs, Newcastle that would have made their press triggers activate and they would have charged us down. And they did this extremely well throughout the whole game.
That's something that'll be really interesting to see, right? Like over the course of these months and hopefully even years with Ruud maybe in charge. Like, how will we be able to improve? Because it's something we've discussed quite a lot, right? In terms of how we build up, we kicked it a lot along very much in that West Ham game, less so in the Brighton game. And obviously, right, there are phases to improvement because whereas how we played out under Enzo, that was ingrained towards the end of the season. They could do it with their eyes closed pretty much. I think on the route, right, there's still a long way to go. So it'll be very interesting to see that when he has his time to implement this style of play, and as the weeks and months go by, maybe next time we meet Newcastle at home, will we be able to deal with this press better? Because that's something that I really want to see, because I do agree with you. We are clearly a team that is not training to kick it long and win the second balls and then play from there. We are a team that wants to build from the back, and that just means when we are forced to kick it long, it looks so clueless, even though kicking it long, I don't think there's anything wrong with it if you play for the second ball, but we quite clearly do not in how we set up, and that just led to these awkward moments.
Absolutely. And, what you're seeing here as well is, I think, to kind of answer your question as well, though, is that in the Championship, you're not going to have a £60 million striker pressing you. You're not going to have a £40 million winger pressing you, or another £40 million central midfielder pressing you. So it's the real step up in quality. But, I still think that Enzo did set us up the right way to at least try. But just to kind of re-emphasize my point, so here's three of their kind of unsung heroes, you could say, in terms of the pressing game. Lewis Hall, a left back, Anthony Gordon, left winger, Alexander Isak, the striker. And just want to look at these, here are the amount of ground duels that they made and how many they won. And to look at Anthony Gordon, not only was he twisting and turning, but he's won 6 of his ground duels. Isak, a threat throughout, won 7 out of his ground duels. Lewis Hall again, and this is just so much better than anyone in our team. So this is the point. It's it's all well and good saying that you're going to just going to reload my slides here. It's all well and good saying that we're going to have to accept this kind of high pressing game, but Newcastle, what they show is that they'll actually carry it through. And so here's Anthony Gordon. This is something that I really like about him. He's here. You can see there's quite some distance between Cody, but that's his pressing trigger. He immediately closes the distance and he forces Cody to go back to Mads Hermansen. So this is him leading by example and showing, and look in this shot, you can still see just how high up Newcastle are trying to pin us back. And guess what?
If you could just stay at this slide, right? Go to the one where Mads Hermansen has the ball. And what I noticed here as well, right, by this Red Bull style kind of football, obviously popularized by Ralf Rangnick back in the day in the Bundesliga, right? Look what Joelinton is doing. Instantly recognizing, well, Anthony Gordon left his man. What do I do? Justin is calling for the ball here. We have a good chance of building a counter, but that opportunity very likely ruined, if I recall correctly, due to the fact Joelinton instantly pressing, recognizing. I mean, that's just a team that is being brilliant and coast, right? It's a small detail that really means the world, because this is all fine and good, but if there's all of a sudden just so acres of space being left open, we could very easily have counted it. And I thought this is why we've struggled to build up, because even when Newcastle was pressing, the others was covering the space and made it really hard for us to build up.
Yeah, and exactly. Chat's on it as well. They can see you're right. Look at Joelinton. Look at his body shape. Look at Anthony Gordon, his body shape. They know where the passing lane is for us to get out, and they're going to close that passing lane right away. So yes, this is something that they were excellent at doing the whole way through the game. And yep, let's talk a bit more about Anthony Gordon. So after that sort of initial 10 minutes where we did, or even 6 minutes where we did all right, all of a sudden Newcastle find the ball. It comes to Anthony Gordon, and you can see, despite the fact that we're quite well set up defensively here, he twists and turns his way out for a number of players, goes for a shot, and, it makes a good save from Mads Hermansen. So this was the threat right from the game. And I think this moment was when the game turned. And it was a bit sad that was sort of 7 minutes into the game. And from this point on, I felt like Newcastle, the crowd got behind them and they started to sort of up their gears quite considerably. I just want to talk a little bit about the way that we were trying to defend. So Ruud does this generally, but I think, again, this was a little bit of a nod for how Newcastle play. He didn't want us to end up with us being, massively exploited, having holes all over the place. So we basically went for a mid-block defense. So you can see, compared to Newcastle, if this was us on the ball, their players would be much further up. But we took it a bit easier. We backed off a little bit, and we want them to come up to actually probably where Bilal or Vardy is before we'd start making a challenge. So he can see that when the ball does actually get played up to one of the wingers, now we're looking to try and compress in. I've mentioned this a few times, how we like to compact the game down one side. There's a concept of trying to use the touchline as a fifth man. So you've got 4 men springing here, and then the touchline acts as the fifth, and then this guy Skip or Vardy can block the passing lane. And you can see that because we're coming here with Newcastle, what it does is it forces them to go back. And when they go back, you could then see that what happens is we get back into our mid-block defense. So that's how we're trying to defend with Ruud, is that we won't press up high the whole time. We do it on occasions. And that occasion is if the defender plays it back to the keeper, you'll see the entire team move forward. But otherwise, in general, we wait for the first line to come into this sort of area of the pitch. And if it's down the side, that's when we try and snap back and win the ball. So that's sort of Ruud's defensive style, which I have to say is much better than Cooper's, who I'm not really sure had a way to press, if I'm being honest. And then in terms of the way that we build up, so look, a lot of you, Sean's already said this multiple times. He's talking about Hamza. Many of you talked about how bad we were in possession. And unfortunately, this was, I think, our biggest crime in the game. And this is where we really missed the double pivot. So here you can see JJ's on the ball. Hamza's free. The ball's going to come into Hamza. And Hamza here, he's decided to go for a Hollywood pass and try and dink it over the top. And if I was to ask you, Andreas, what do you think Hamza's Chowdhury's strengths are and what are his weaknesses?
I mean, his weaknesses are...
Well, let's be fair. Let's start with his strengths. Let's give him some credit.
Physicality. Yeah. He runs quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think those are his two main strengths. And his main weakness is he's not a deep lying playmaker by any means. He's not the one to have the vision or the creativity or the long balls in him to do what someone like Winks might be doing and sending a ball over 10 men, fooling everyone.
Exactly. I would also add for a positive, he's got a banging afro. But one thing that I wouldn't say is that this type of pass that he's going to attempt is probably not best suited. So he's going to try and think it over. Yeah.
And I can see you just watching as well, realizing even if I ran, I wouldn't be able to get to it.
Exactly. And yet, Sean, we're going to come to those positioning as well, because that was another big reason for our defeat today. But yeah, this is something that we noticed a lot is a lot of kind of unforced errors. And this has really made me sad because, you know, here's another thing. So we've got Skip on the ball. He's going to pass it into Hamza. And actually, right now, we're quite well set up. We've managed to move forward as a team into a good block. It's still 0-0. And we've got the opportunity to build and try and do something here. And here, Hamza, he's going to go for this pass. And that's quite a tight pass to get between these two men. I think if I was being cynical, I don't think he's the player to try and attempt this pass. He does, and it gets cut out. But even worse than it get cut out is that, you know, if you're not playing to your strengths, is once it gets cut out, look at what Newcastle do. So this is Gordon. Gordon immediately spots the space because Hamza tried to make up for his mistake. So this is about the positioning. He's given the ball away, and rather than holding the shape and blocking the passing shadow here, he's going to try and close and win the ball back. That makes the space available to Isak. Isak's going to turn. And I think this is another thing that's really worrying about Leicester. So this is actually a 1-on-5. There is not a month of Sundays where in this 1-on-5 situation, we should be under that much threat, even though Isak's a top player. But what happens is the ball moves on. He keeps going. There's 5 players attracted to him. And Skip ends up making this challenge on Isak because, look, he's always got the ball through to Murphy here. You could have a go on goal and possibly score. And the end result...
have a go on goal, I will say. He uses the advantage, has a terrible shot because he's whack. And then Skip gets there. I will say, I thought that yellow was stupid. Skip misses a tackle and then glides away. I will say the replay didn't fully show the collision, but showed him drifting the other way on his knees. So I don't know if he just decided to 2-foot him or whatever afterwards and get the yellow. Maybe then it's the show. But I will say, I thought the referee has some weird calls. When Murphy takes this shot, there should be no callback for advantage. The advantage was the shot. It's just crap for Newcastle that Murphy shit.
Yeah. Well, so a few things here. So for me, I think obviously here's the first mistake, right? Here's about the point about giving the ball away carelessly, right? Is that like this is what's the reward there? I guess the reward is if you get here, you can exploit Casey and start going for the attack. But look, this is something that is fairly narrow gap. I don't feel comfortable with Hamza going for this. I think maybe we should have done something a bit more like Hamza, you just pass it to Skip and lets you Skip to make those passes. It's not as exciting, but I think it's making sure that you're a bit more careful. So that's mistake number 1. Then now, once it's on transition and Newcastle here, I mean, actually, I think it's funny is that Skip here maybe should think about taking yellow here. I think to be fair, he's probably thinking there's 3 men back, so I'm okay for this. But you can see that as the move proceeds. Now, we're going to have a bit of a talk, Andreas, about a certain Danish left back in the team. Because something that you're going to see time and time again is he gets attracted to the ball. So here again, I suppose here he might be looking out for the run here. I think is this Bruno, those are Joe Linton that he's trying to cover. But here's the thing, he does this a lot where the wide man ends up totally free. And we're going to see that in the second half that leads to a goal. Anyway, point is we've got 5 players potentially around here to try and stop Isak, and we can't really. And yeah, Skip ends up making this clumsy challenge. So I think we should have done better with this defensive situation, maybe had a bit more trust. I think Skip, I'm not really sure why he makes the challenge at this point in time, even if you don't think it's booking. I think it's just, there was nothing to be gained from that situation. Right? Yeah.
If anything, we go back to the frame where Hamza loses the ball. Because I was listening to a Danish podcast today, Mediano, that talks quite a lot of football with one of their experts, right? And he mentioned a bit about how the tactical game has changed and how at the moment this double pivot, a lot of coaches like to have them sit narrow. It's something I've questioned a bit sometimes on the tactical side here as well, because I don't really like them sitting narrow. I think it leaves too much space to be exploited. But one of the reasons they do so, right? He talked about was the fact that in this situation, if you get caught out with the ball or make a mistake, there is less space to utilize, and the other 6 can make up for your mistake. And when we are doing something like this, having our 6s together, right, it's good for defensive solidity, but somehow we still give away this massive chance. That's what really disappoints me here, because, Chuddery goes headlessly in, just ball hunting to try and stop it. Skip doesn't realize that Isak is right behind him. One of these 2 6s should have stopped this attack before it even happened and cut out the pass.
Yes, exactly. So that's exactly it. And I think it's interesting what you mentioned about the adaptation with the 6s. As Costa says, he has a soft spot for Hamza. But I think I've got to kind of be more on Andreas's side here, where I feel that the modern day Premier League 6, there isn't really a room for like a pure destroyer anymore. Even you see indeed he's had to massively adjust his game and start to get good on the ball. I think you have to be way more complete. And, fair play. It's a reason why Rodri's won the Ballon d'Or, right? It's not enough just to be able to destroy, but you've got to be able to create in that position too. These days, you've got to be a baller, it feels, in any of these teams that want to have possession. And I think Hamza, look, to be fair, he may well have been rusty, but it's not his natural game. And I do think Premier League level, I don't ever really see him being, maybe for teams that are battling relegation like ourselves, but I think he's always going to be a risk. But anyway, let's move on, because there's quite a few of these to go through, unfortunately. So here's Justin. Justin's going to play it into Hamza.
Oh, that's the second Hollywood ball, right?
Yeah, well, to be fair, this time round, Hamza, he actually makes the line-breaking pass. No, it doesn't. It gets cut out as well. There is one to get. So he's up to 3 here already. And then again, we see here's another problem, right? So now this comes to, is this Bruno Guimaraes? He's got the ball. He's going to play it immediately through here. This is to Joe Linton. Joe Linton then puts it through to Isak. And then Isak here, I couldn't believe that he didn't finish this. Line. Yeah. He's such a good striker. And look, again, that's really worrying. So because someone's tried to go for his cute pass, I guess he's trying to find Bilal here, or is he trying to find the winger? Either way,
he's trying to find McAteer.
Yeah. You're probably right. Either way, it gets cut out. Actually, at this point in time, Mavadidi's gone to the other side. We're going to get to that in a moment. But yeah, that one pass. And this is the thing, is that sometimes you're most weak when you try to be attacking, and you got to be careful. And look at that. Just because of that, the ball gets played through, and that should really have been 2-0, I think. And yes, as Sean said, the centre-back pairing pace exploited again. And this is another issue, I think, with the game. And I'm going to come to that a little bit later, because I don't think that Ruud set us up well against a team like this.
Can we have another one? Chance, just quickly, one quick note. Yeah. If you go back right to when we lose the ball again here, I want to see, again, we have 2 narrow 6s. And I think when they are more coached on what they have to do when they lose the ball in this situation, because obviously you know the careless ball loss, and that's when I thought they exploit us most. You can see Skip goes out to cover the space or try and cover Anthony Gordon, but Justin too late realizes that opens up a passing lane. He realizes too late, and that leaves the space. I believe that is Joe Linton who then sends the ball through afterwards, right? To Alexander. Can you go one frame further ahead? When the ball
absolutely. Well, you're right here that you can see he's gone to Gordon, but in going to Gordon, he's actually opened
and Justin realizes too late, right? If they are coached, knowing by each other what they need to do, I think this is what we got. Because Justin realizes after the pass has been played, and then the space is already there. Had they moved, in sync, I think again, this is something we could stop, something that could be worked on. But it's very clear it's early days, and you can see sometimes who is my man in this situation? Who is my man in this other situation? They are struggling a bit, and it's creating some moments like this where even with that many players defensively in the area that they play the ball through, we look wide open.
Absolutely. And this is the face of an oh shit face from Oliver Skip, who's realized that passing lane is completely free. Now, something that I think is fair here as well is that what's brought up here is someone wants to talk about the positioning of both. Here we go. Conscious. Good point here. Can we talk about Yannick's position relative Cody? He seems to be coming forward to support the midfield a bit in the first half. Yeah, we normally tend to use one of the two as a kind of builder. In this case, like previously in the move, you can see Yannick's pushed right up here. Cody's the last man back to try and support the midfield. But when we're now caught on transition, you can see that, in this race, Yannick versus Isak, I mean, even if Yannick was in front of him, you wouldn't back him to win the race. But at this point in time, he's got no chance. But as the guys are saying, the problem is that with these two pushing up like they are, if you lose the ball, you're in big trouble. Now, look, you can look at it different ways. I mean, I would say again that this is, you just got to be better passer, right? And this is, I would still say that it's okay to play this system. Yeah, I think for sure, in an ideal world, if we have these defenders that are faster, we don't have fast defenders at the moment. Perhaps we'll sign one in January, but at the moment we don't. But perhaps you could say we're being a bit reckless in the way that we would play. That's a point we're going to mention. Anyway, so that's another issue of giving the ball away carelessly. Mavadidi here. Mavadidi gets the ball and he's going to try and find the ball here and try and play through Casey McAteer. But again, it gets dealt with. And again, it's in a good position here. This is Steffi's sort of best zone. You can see that we've actually got a bit of a numerical superiority here. We could be a bit cuter on the ball, but I feel that sometimes we try to rush it a little bit too much, like in this example. And I do feel that Ruud does want us to get the ball forwards quickly. And look, maybe in time we'll get better at it, because I think, to be fair, Newcastle were good at getting the ball forwards faster and more effectively. But right now, we're not quite there. Another one here. So this time round, we've got Casey McAteer and we've got Bilal, and the ball's going to come through to Bilal. And look, he's going to go for, you see, he knows, and this I think is like a pattern of play that's been coached, so he knows that McAteer is going to make this run this way. So what he's going to try and do is play a back heel that potentially can take 4 people out of the game, which is a nice idea. But the problem is that Joe Linton's there, and now they've got the ball, and again they get on the attack. And again, I just feel like this is another example where maybe instead, he actually played a ball here to Bilal, that rather than going for the back heel, he could have driven down a little bit into the wing or try and win a set piece or move his team upfield. I feel it's like if you're up against the pressure, and we actually end up conceding sort of 2 minutes after this, that sometimes you've got to buy your team a little bit more time rather than just trying to force it the whole time. And the end result of this was this. This was just before they scored, and you can see at this point in time, Newcastle now, they're all over us. 10 attempts already, 3 shots on target. Leicester only that attempt right at the very start that I showed you, and it felt at this point in time that the goal was coming. And this was even scarier. This is after they scored. 21 touches in the opposition box for Newcastle. We had it just once, and we were really up against it. And this is the look of a guy who's probably thinking, I wonder if there's any refunds on this job. And someone wanted to ask me, so look, the bad passing was part of it, but that wasn't the only part. The other thing that was really disappointing, and I think especially so from Hamza Chowdhury's perspective, because normally he's known as being like a very physical player, is look at this. Hamza Chowdhury, 0 tackles attempted, 0-1. 3 ground duels contested, 1-1. No ground duels ever contested. And Skip the same. 1 tackle attempted, 2 ground duels contested, only 1-1. 1 aerial duel contested, 1-1. Very poor. Now, if we compare this to the Newcastle midfield 3, I mean, they just won everything. That's what it comes down to, right? So this game was a very clear one. They often say in the war that is football, the battle is won or lost in midfield, right? That's the battle that determines the war. In this one, they had it easy. I mean, look, we capitulated in the second half. We'll get to that. But that was a very poor showing from both of them. And I think one of the reasons why it was a poor showing is that their positions weren't great either. So a lot of the times they weren't even in the right place to make the challenge. Whereas Newcastle, they knew when to snap. They knew when to work together. And I think if you compare this was the midfield pivot when we were playing against West Ham. And just look at these stats. I mean, 9 tackles from Wilfred Ndidi in this game alone. So literally Ndidi in one game, probably in one half, has made more challenges than the other 2 did in their entire duration for the game. Even Samare here, who I think is not getting enough credit, is something he's added to his game, is he's starting to win the duels and get more physical. So and I really feel, I did feel coming into this game that I was like really frustrated that of all the games to lose these two for, that this was the one game I didn't want to lose them for. Because funny enough, I feel that like, even though we won't play them, if we'd have played Skip and Chowdhury against Wolves, of course, that's not your best two, but it wouldn't be as bad as playing Newcastle, who are going to bully you. And, you know, Sean kind of lines up here, says, Joe Linton is a linebacker. We need a tank to contest him. Exactly. He's built like an American footballer, a bit Adama Traore style. And I think, you know, Eddie Howe moving him into a central midfielder, you know, really worked him. Good question from Costa here. Do you think Ruud got done by Howe? Well, let me ask this for you, right? So here's my summary of why I think Newcastle won the war. So their high press pinned us back and it stopped us from getting going. We were poor at playing the ball out under pressure and retaining it to force Newcastle back into their own defensive block. With Ndidi and Samara missing, it meant that we lost the midfield battle, and a complete lack of physicality in winning battles meant the Newcastle midfield overrun us. Isak and Gordon up front were superb, not only in their goals, but leading the press. So I think you've got to give them a lot of respect. It wasn't just the fact that they had the quality. They did the dirty work. They were happy to do it. And I think some Leicester players, Mavididi, have to learn from players like Anthony Gordon that recognise there are two sides to the game. We were really poor, but I have to say that I think the way that Newcastle set up, they made us look poor. And defensively, we were poor and capitulated badly. So do I think Ruud got done by Howe? I think with retrospect, you could probably say that maybe with that midfield pivot, we were a bit naive in the way that we played, and we probably should have played a bit differently. And this is a good thing. We're going to come to Skip a bit later, but do think about this in your head, Andreas, because I want to get your opinion on this in about 10 minutes' time. That also makes the signing of Oliver Skip even more questionable. Why would you sign another CDM who doesn't offer physicality if he doesn't offer technical ability? And I think I agree with you. And yet, Costa, as you said here, your third point proves Manny right. And what Manny says is that if you want to play the ball, you've got to earn the right to play, which means you've got to win the challenges in the first place. And that's why I think there's an awful lot of disrespect put on Wilfred Ndidi's name. And I think this game, perhaps more than any other, shows you why we were missing him. But all right, we've got still a lot more damage to go through. So let's get through it. So
here was the first half, man. Whew.
Oh, yes. So that's why I might pick up the pace here. So
that was the better of the two halves, by the way.
Yep, exactly. I think something that was disappointing is we conceded 2 goals from set pieces in this game. Now, to be fair, this first one, I think people will be frustrated. But when you look back at it, it's actually pretty clever. So Gordon's here taking the corner, and they're going to go for the short corner. Actually, so I think it might be Lewis Hall taking the corner. They're going to go for a short corner here. Anthony Gordon's here, so we're going to bring him in a minute. And you can see that this is something that they practiced in training. So what we've got here is going to be played here into Tonali. He's going to wait for the ball. And now, if you're Mavididi, what do you do, right? So they've got 3 men here, so they've got fewer men in the box. And so what do you do? He's going to sort of hold his position. But literally, if you're Steffi Mavididi here, Andreas, let's imagine you're Mavididi here. What do you do? Do you pick option A, B, or C?
I don't know, man. There's so many choices. What? And imagine making that decision in a split second, right? I mean, you could argue for any one of them, but you're done, dude. You're 1v3. They can easily outmaneuver you.
Exactly, and that's what their set piece is designed to do. So to be fair to Mavididi, he chooses probably the best option, which is B, to sort of stay where he is and make the player make the pass. But what happens is the pass does get made. You can see that Gordon now has come all the way from here to now move to this position. So they're like dodging and weaving to make people move. The ball gets played into him. So now Gordon's got the ball here. And to be honest with you, even though Vardy's looking a bit upset here, if you look at this right now, we're still not that badly set up, right? We've got a lot of defenders back. So if he's going to cross it in, we should still be covered. But what's the worst possible thing that could happen in this scenario, Andreas?
A cutback.
Exactly. And so you can see just how good a set piece this is, because that's the one thing that we didn't take into account. Gordon plays a beautiful pass in. It's going to come to Murphy. Murphy's going to do this. And this is, again, a bit frustrating, although I can see why you wouldn't have a man on the line here, because we've got all these players in the box. And yet, because of the way that they've done the set piece, they've got an open gap. So Murphy can just pass it in essentially into the back of the net. And there you go. That's 1-0. So look, I would say, compared to the other set piece goal that we conceded, I would give them some respect, right? Yeah, T. Smith says it's a bit jammy to get through the low block. And I know what you mean. That's what I'm saying. I think if I look at this, whilst this is clever, they've actually underloaded the box, right? They've got fewer players in the box to pull off this thing. And in this case, we're still defensively well set up. that is a bit frustrating that he could be cutting back. So who's going to pick him up though? I guess someone from here's got to drop, maybe. But even in this case, at this point in time, to get through a crowd like this and score, normally it's got to be a pretty good finish. And yeah, I think Costa, you're right. I would say props where it's due. And I think, look, I've shown you that they well deserve to have the leader here. So that was the first half. And just want to say though, was there anything good in the first half? I showed you one moment, and there was one good bit, although it wasn't brilliant. So here we've got Newcastle on the attack. It's Gordon again. And this time you can see our defensive block. And it was our threat on transition, which is, I think, something that Ruud is trying to improve us. I think he did a good job at Manchester United when he was there at turning them, making them even more effective transition team. So at this point in time, Hamza does actually sort of force a challenge. He doesn't win it, but he forces the turnover here to Justin. Justin's going to get it. He's going to play it into Bilal. And Bilal, who I think probably was our best player, to be honest with you, which is not really saying that much, but he gets the ball. And it's something that I really like about him. He knows how to take the ball on the turn, which is like, I think, the art of a top player. I wish I was better at it myself, to be honest with you. He spins, he plays the ball forward, and he's going to find Vardy. And here's where Vardy's going to show Bilal how it's really done, because Vardy actually does go for the back heel. Vardy doesn't get enough props, I don't think. Yep, conscious, you put it here. Skip and Hamza in the right places. Well, 1 out of 10 ain't bad, eh? Or is it actually awful? But here Vardy plays the back heel. You can see now Skip's actually going to be supporting the attack. He gets it. And now our threat on transition. This is now starting quite good. So now we're going to go for the 4-man attack. We've generated a good chance. Vardy's going to get on his bike. McAteer's there. You can see now Newcastle. This is where we want to. This is what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to keep calm under pressure, play our way out from the back, and generate this sort of opportunity on the break. And as I've showed multiple times in this analysis, we try and do 4 men up rather than committing with 5 to make us a bit more protected. Skip's going to get the ball, and he's going to try and play in McAteer here. McAteer does get the ball. I guess this is perhaps where he's not the most confident, right? I feel like if that was for Tawu or Mavadidi, they would probably drive down or drive a bit more towards goal. So he's going to turn back. Now you can see Mavadidi's joining the attack. But you see, in turning back, you can see that what's happened is allowed Newcastle
it stops all the momentum, right? I mean,
yeah.
If you're slow building up like Enzo Moresca, that's fine. But even under Enzo, we played when we were on a transition, we committed to the transition. Yeah. And I mean, I thought that out of all the decisions you had, I'd rather see him be bold and try and play to Vardy or Skip or shoot or whatever to get something done rather than this.
To be fair, in this position, Mavadidi gets it. And what I like is look who's joining the attack here in the background. It's your man. So in's going to come Christensen, and Christensen's going to make this run down the line here. And I'd actually say that this is the one thing that really annoys me about Leicester is I swear that they've got Victor Christensen blindness in this team. It's not just Mavadidi that does it. It seems like Bilal El Khanous is the only player in a Leicester shirt that can spot Victor Christensen's runs. Because Skip gets it here as well. And I feel like here, if he was a bit cuter, he could have played him in there first time round, maybe with a back heel. But instead, he decides to cut in and try and cross with his right foot. And it gets dealt with by Newcastle defense. But here you got another person. You can see that even though Newcastle did manage to get back, now we're pushing a bit further forward in terms of attack. Bilal's going to get it. So it was actually cut out in the end. But I still think that this is more of what I want to see. And I do think that the best moments we've seen under Ruud, I'm going to show you in the Brighton game as well, have been that he has improved, I think, our in-possession play and our ability to transition at the right time. Even though, unfortunately, you might think, well, if that's the best that you've got, it probably shows you how bad we are, which we were. Get on, see if you want to say something there.
No. I mean, it's something we've seen quite a lot, right? If you just go back to the screenshot when he's about to send it through to, well, a few more back. There we go. At this one, right? You play the ball through to Christiansen, low cross through. Maybe Vardy gets on it. Maybe Mkhitaryan gets on it. Likely it goes out to a corner. You guarantee something from it, right? I mean, I get you don't do this every time. And he has to make these runs, and he keeps doing them because he needs to. It drags the men out of position and creates space for the member on the ball as well. But you have to, at the very least, sometimes pass it, because at one point, I believe our opponents will just stop marking him because they know he's not going to get the ball. And all the energy he puts into that, it's really infuriating. We don't get to see more end product out of it. And I'm going to say this, and this is not biased, it's not his fault. It's not his fault he doesn't get more end product, because in the West Ham game, when he got put on the ball, he had a huge ball through to Vardy, an assist for Daka. I think if we really got to put Christiansen in a good position, we got to let him shine. And in these situations, we would get more out of it by at the very least 50-50 going for him or cutting inside to confuse our opponents more than just this.
Yeah, burn this image in your mind because I'm going to show you a Newcastle goal later where they actually do what you suggested and they score from it. So that's the difference. So just want to pick out some other things that interested me with Rude and some other observations that I made. So around 40 minutes, you can see that he actually flipped the wingers over and he put Mavadidi on the right-hand side. Now, this is very interesting. And I have to say, I actually think this backfired massively in the game because I think that in the second half, especially, it just allowed Anthony Gordon and Lewis Hall to just absolutely run riot down that wing. I think his goal, though, was to try and pin back Newcastle a little bit and stop them coming forward by giving them more of an offensive break. I showed you a few times there how McAteer, wasn't really, he's turned back rather than attacking. So I think he's wanted Mavadidi to be more an attacker. But the other thing that really interested me is look at Christensen's position here.
Like a number 8. And do I hear people calling about the fact that Dewsbury Hall wouldn't fit into a system? Well, when Ricardo comes back, you could essentially have Dewsbury Hall in the starting position, move up to number 8 with the ball, and then, just take Ricardo Pereira into midfield for the double pivot. Maybe there's a chance he could fit in. I'm just saying.
Well, so what I'm going to say is watch out for that in future games because this is what Chelsea have been doing this season where Enzo has inverted Cucurella or Malo Gusto not into a CDM but into an attacking midfielder. And I think that's what he's trying to do here. Now, I think what's happened is that we didn't really get to see if this would or wouldn't work because we started the second half so badly. But clearly, because we're behind here, he's tried to get more men forward in the attack and he's tried to confuse Eddie Howe by doing something with Christensen here inverting into an attacking midfielder. So let's keep an eye on it. Didn't work in this game, but look, I will admire that I do feel that Rude, he's good at observing the game state and he does try to make tactical tweaks and changes. They're not always going to work. They certainly didn't in this game, but if you don't try it, you're not going to get anything. Right. Anyway, I can't believe it's taken us 45 minutes and we haven't even got onto the main turning point of this game. But ladies and gentlemen, here he is. It's your favorite goalkeeper of all time. The man that is lovingly referred to as a wage stealer by our good friend Ross, who often joins the call-in show. It's Danny Ward. And we were all absolutely petrified as we were coming out the second half to see this. And I don't know if you can see that in the background. That is a face of pure terror from Connor Cody.
Look at this guy, like, bro, we're in for it. We are out. We're done.
He thought that, being told off by Top was scary, but this was unfortunately.
What is anyone saying? Guys, I don't know what to do. Please don't make me lose.
I feel like Vestergaard saying, just see that goal. That's what you've got to protect.
That's why you need to stand there and then catch the ball.
Yeah.
Just go those stats quickly. It's shocking. It's absolutely shocking.
Yeah, and look, you can't really sugarcoat it. He didn't have the best stats. But was he at fault at the goals or not? Let's take a look at that. So let's take a look at their second goal. So I talked about set pieces.
Another set piece, man. This infuriated me so much.
Yeah, well, this one, I have to say, the first one I think was forgivable, but this one is poor, right? And I think, I'm sure Sean, who's basically been picking up everything wrong that Hamza's been doing all game, well, you might have another one here. So JJ is up against one man here, but I don't know, these guys have got to have better communication. You cannot leave
marking, man. Marking the Ghost. Halloween was a few months ago, buddy.
Absolutely. So I think these have got to have better comms because he's marking no one, as you say. That means JJ's pushed up, which means there's a completely free player. This is Lewis Hall. Anthony Gordon's going to dink in a lovely cross. He's obviously spotted him. And then what I like about this is to be honest with you, even if he headed it straight at goal, that would already be bad because you've given someone a free header, look, 6 yards out from your own goal. But fair play to him. He's clever and he heads it across goal. Now, I think if you look at Danny Ward's position here, look, guys, I think Danny Ward's a terrible goalkeeper as well, but he's in the right place there, right? He's not absolutely awful. It goes across. Now, I got to say, that is the Danny Ward classic where he looks like he dives about 2 minutes too late, but he can't do anything about that. And bit glitch there, but you can see that's headed into the back of the net.
I am going to say something, right? This is a goal I don't want to blame him for. Sorensen said this isn't on him, but a great keeper would do better. Matt Hermansen very likely wouldn't have saved this, but he would have reacted quicker. He would have likely gotten even to getting a dive off, and I could have seen him make a save of the month here. I would have been hopeful that at this point, because the ball travels in the air for quite a while, I got to sit on the train on my way to my mom's place and realize, yeah, we are fucked. We are cooked because you can see this ball is going to meet a Newcastle player's head, and he's too late to react. This isn't one where I'd say, you're horrible, you should never touch a football again, but you're not a great keeper. You're not a good keeper. You don't get anywhere near the ball here.
Yeah. I know there's going to be a lot of hate towards Ward. And look, I agree. I'm going to say it again. I think he's a poor keeper. You think this is fair enough. It's his job to tell Hamza and point out the 2 versus 1. Perhaps Kunal with Hermanson would have organised everyone better. I do agree. But I do think that, if Ward's coming on at half time and he's had no time to warm up, I think you can all look. What I'm saying is if we say we lost this game because of Danny Ward, that's not true. The mistake here is
we lost it because of his negative aura. I mean, everyone on the team was terrified when he came on.
Well, that's definitely true. That's definitely true. Anyway, so we've conceded and it's 2-0. But I've got to say that something that really frustrated me, and I think we're guilty of doing this, and I think we were guilty of doing it all last season as well, is that I think when we go behind, something that I don't like about our team is I think we immediately try and put it right, but we're naive. How can I say this? Like I saw it there with Hamza. He gave the ball away. Then he tried to charge in and win the ball back, but he actually made it worse. And Isak almost gets through. So we're 2-0 down, right? And we've just started the half. Really, if you're more mature and you've got more control and you're more experienced, you just need to ride out the next few minutes, right? You can get yourself back into the game. You don't need to immediately try and charge up the field. Because if you do that, what's the one thing that can happen is you can overexpose yourself. So here we can see that the ball kind of drops out into just a sort of 50-50 situation. And we're going to try and win the ball back. Again, you can see Hamza's going to try and snap in. But look, again, now you've got both CDMs very compacted in one part of the field. So what's the potential problem in this situation if we don't win the ball back, Andreas?
We will be very exposed on the transition, and that is exactly what happens. Go on, just roll the clip and we can get through.
Yeah, you are Nostradamus. So Newcastle managed to see the ball down. Now, fair play. I at first thought they would go for the ball immediately across, which would be like the much faster one. But fair play to them. They actually decided to play the ball backwards and build from the back. So it's going to come, I think this is Dan Burn. Dan Burn's going to play across, and now they're going to play out this way. You can see, look, they've now dragged the front 5, including Hamza, way upfield. Play the ball into their midfield. They're going to turn. Fair play. Hamza's got his way itself all over the other side. But now look, with the 2 of them now compressed this side, you've got a player completely free. I think this is Joe Linton, totally free in the middle of the field. He's going to receive the ball. And now Newcastle are going to get on their bike. They're going to now start attacking. You can see I've circled Hamza's position here. Now out of position. The ball's going to come through. It's going to come through to Gordon. And so now, do you remember when I said burn that image in your mind? So Connor Cody, Harry Winks, I know that you watch these videos and you were teaching Steve Cooper how to train the team. You probably don't need to do that with Rude, but if any of the analysts are playing, this is what a good left back does. So they're up 4 here, and the fullback, who's Lewis Hall, is going to support the attack. Gordon's going to get the ball here, but Hall's going to continue his run here. This time round, they are going to make the right pass. He's going to lure in the 2 versus 1. Hall's going to get it. He plays the cross. Now, to be fair, this is a little bit unlucky because this is not the best cross in the world, and Cody does try to deal with it. But let me just tell you from a coaching perspective, that's not the best challenge you could make. Your body shape at this point in time, you should try and header it. I don't really know what that is. And what's ended up happening is he just flipped it into Isak. Again, now this, to be fair, Thomas, I know you're in chat here. I know you're going to probably go absolutely spare on this because this is very slow. Isak's got a free header. There's no, I mean, what's he doing? He's playing musical statues. And this one is. And it's 3-0 and it's game over. But as I say, for me, look, I agree with you. This season, we just play with too much desperation from when Cooper was up here until now. Exactly. I am going to show you a bit later. I felt against Brighton, this is one thing that we actually did particularly well, is we weren't so desperate. St. James's Park, I don't know if you've been there, any of the people in chat, but when the crowd is rocking, it can be quite intimidating. Rocking, yeah. But
go on. Just finish.
No, go for it, Andreas.
I just very much want to go back to just it's like we saw this screenshot before, right? Just go back to just before he gets past the ball. Maybe a few more, right? Like when just before Lewis Hall gets past the ball. So more right about there exactly, right? We've seen this situation a million times in Leicester City. Swap Gordon for Mavididi, swap Lewis Hall for Christiansen. And you don't always pass Christiansen. That is correct to say, because what Christiansen would do here is he would drag a man with him, open up the space. Mavididi sometimes could cut inside, cross himself, go for the shot. But you need to pass to the fullback every now and then, because what will happen is the fullback can get a cross in. I know Lewis Hall doesn't have the best execution of the cross here. He's very lucky to get I don't know if he gets the assist for this, but he's very lucky that it ends up on Alexander Isak's head. But the point is, it helps create the chance. It diversifies the way we can create chances. We have a left back who can do this. And I know I am Victor Jensen lover here, but I'm not blind to his faults. He's by no means a perfect player, but this is one of the things he has the energy and the will to do time and time again. We need to create chances like this at least once or twice every game because he makes 10 of these runs a game.
I agree, and they've shown it. But to be fair, like, I wouldn't say that's an awful cross. That's a decent cross. He's put it into the area to ask the question because that could still be an OG. And look, you get what you put in life, and if you've made a good move. So anyway, that's game over. But again, we do the same things. Now we're 3 down, and now we're committing JJ forwards. And look, again, I feel that like I was really worried like this could now get embarrassing, especially with Danny Ward in goal, which, as Ragsy has said here, is absolutely useless. And look, this, I think I am a little bit cynical about Ruud. I think he should have maybe been a bit more experienced and just taken the L, quite frankly, and just told his team to like get a grip and just try and keep composure. Because instead, I think naively, sort of almost Russell Martin-esque, we've again tried to go forward. So now, look, something that we were hoping would have been a thing of the past is JJ's committed up forwards. He's going to lose the ball. This could just be a Steve Cooper interpretation again. And fair play to him. This time around, Lewis Hall's got the ball and he's going to go direct. And he's going to play the ball. And you know why he's going to go direct? Because it's been mentioned many times beforehand. And that's that Leicester got no pace. And see, this is another reason why it was naive. We've pushed all these men forward. And on transition, we're now playing a high line, yes, with Yannick Vestergaard and Connor Cody as your 2 centre-backs. Does that sound like a good idea to you?
Horrible. Well, absolutely horrible.
Exactly. And, you know, and that's the problem, is because 2 faster centre-backs can probably deal with this. I think you have to give Isak a lot of credit here. Now, you've been just giving him some roses. So I think you've got to give him some the reverse of roses here, because your man here, in this situation...
I haven't seen the situation yet, so I'm intrigued to see how it plays out.
So what happens? He's going to get attracted to the ball, and what's going to happen is who's in this space? Oh. And this is something that has happened quite a few times with him, is he gets attracted to the ball. I showed you one time in the first half where Isak almost scored. This time it's going to come to Murphy. Now, this one doesn't go in, right? But, so he's already made that mistake once, right? So now let's talk about their 4th goal.
Oh, it happened again.
Yes. Now, to be fair, we've literally just made substitutes at this point. But we're not set. Okoli's come on. He's come on as right centre-back. Newcastle are going to spring the ball, and you can see that Gordon's got the ball here. He knows that Isak's going to make the run. So he does a nice reverse pass here. Okoli's now jumped way too early. And now you can see Newcastle. But again, here, though, if you look at the positions, pretty much everyone is ahead. Here's your man here again. You can see that he's scanning. But I'm guessing because Vestergaard's there, they know that he's lack of pace. Here's the problem. Here's where he is, and here's going to be the eventual goal scorer. So he's going to come in to try and get the ball. The space is opened up. And now, just look at this. This is awful positioning from the Leicester team. They're in a conga line. There's 3 Newcastle players on this side of the pitch. It's going to come to Murphy, and this time round...
Sends Danny Ward to the toilet or whatever I saw on Twitter when they photoshopped it.
Yeah. So, and this, if ever there was a screenshot to sum up Danny Ward, it's either this one or you've all come here for it, guys. It's this one.
It's horrible, then.
Even though he was poor there, it was already game over then. As I say, the problem is, and this is the thing about playing up forward. So here we go. Let's bring out one of Lox's comments. I noticed some bad morning foxes. You said, Anil, that Skip got progressively worse as the match went on. Why was that? Did the players just give up after the 3rd or 4th goal? Well, let's talk about that. But I feel that he just knew that they were having a nightmare, giving the ball away. And it was like, I think Newcastle, they just punished us for every single mistake that we made here. But again, look, here, Kate said this, and I agree, which is that the issue with Skip is he just stands in spaces, but as a CDM, he's not really standing in the right place. Like, if he's standing here, what is he doing? Is he blocking a passing lane to anybody? No. Is he challenging a player? No. He's doing neither one thing or the other. And so that's why when you've got this, is there's spaces, like, for example, here, if we're tighter, you can stop the ball getting to the right player, but instead, here's the free passing lane. To be fair, that's not Skip. That's maybe on JJ. Maybe here Skip is trying to block the lane here, but he just seems positionally unaware. Yeah. And, you can see here his face is like, oh, shucks. I'm being a bit polite there.
I think that's a good point, right? And one thing I've mentioned about Vestergaard's game before, about the fact how he compensates for his lack of pace, is the fact that he'll go for these 50-50s. He has a very smart footballing brain. And that's to hide his lack of pace, right? When it works, he cuts out the chance before it gets dangerous. When he loses the 50-50, he looks absolutely incapable of playing football because he gets caught out. And I don't know if Christiansen has some of the same trade here, but what he's doing is he's making these decisions. Like he's taking the 20-80 here, right? 20% chance he stops the ball and he wins the ball back and we stop the chance. 80% chance the ball gets played through him. Like when he goes for these headless challenges, he needs to win them. Otherwise, he gets exposed. And to see him make two of those, it is very disappointing, right? Because there are not just acres, there are miles of space there for Murphy to run into. So if you're Christiansen, when you make the decision to go for the challenge, you have to win it. Vestergaard is not Vestergaard, it's Vestergaard.
Vestergaard. There you go. From the official Danish correspondent. So look, let's just talk about the match, and that's the end of this. Not the end of the analysis, but the end of the Newcastle.
Oh God, there's more.
No, we're going to talk about some good stuff now. Look, just overall, then look. Fair play to the 72 people that are still in chat to watch what was an absolutely awful Leicester performance. Let's break it down. It was a poor performance overall. We really missed Ndidi, Samari, Winks. Ndidi for his physicality, Samari for his ability to pick up the ball, win challenges and drive forwards. Winks because he can actually make a pass over 3 yards and get it on target. I think to miss, if we had just one of those three, I don't think it would have been anywhere near as bad. But missing all three was unfortunate, in my opinion. What was Rude naive to play that way, though, considering you missed them? In my opinion, yes, because I'm going to show you in a moment that we even tried putting Connor Cody as a CDM. Oh, yeah, guys, by the way, if you like the analysis, please smash the like button. And if you haven't already, so do subscribe to Blue Tinted Glasses. It's free and it does help us with the algorithm and it allows us to get more of these to give out to you guys, hopefully in the future as prizes. So, yeah, really would appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks, Sean, for bringing it up. So, look, as I said, I think we're too impatient when we get the ball. That is still, I think, a problem we've had all season, and it's the complete opposite of where we were last season. It's funny, under Enzo, sometimes I was actually angry the other way, that we'd get the ball in the final third, and I was like, come on, Enzo, bruvs. Stop telling them to just pass in the horseshoe. Like, if we're playing Plymouth, we're better than Plymouth. Just smash the ball into the box and win the headers, right? We don't need to try and create this perfect goal. But in the Premier League, for some reason, we've gone back the other way and we're getting too desperate to play it forward. And it's actually costing us. Whereas I think we need to be a bit more patient. We need to keep our heads. So, you know, when we are, you know, being impatient or trying to get back into the game, if you're playing a high line with Cody and Vestergaard when we just conceded, you're asking for trouble. And Newcastle absolutely punished us brutally because of that. Interesting point here about Yannick playing CDM. I mean, maybe that would have been a better option, to be honest. The team capitulated when Ward came on, but it wasn't his fault. He was awful. I do agree with the negative aura. Look, when I play Football Manager, literally the first thing I do when I take over Leicester is I click Danny Ward, I click transfer list. Sometimes I even click free transfer. And it says the board are extremely disappointed to pay 1.8 million out. And I'm like, I don't care. I need to get this cancer out of the club. But there you go. Sorry, Andreas, what were you saying there?
Yeah, I agree, right? I think when you get run over in midfield, it's incredibly hard to play the game because even when I was watching the first half, I thought we had some moments where we did actually look quite good defensively. I think we got caught out on the transition because we weren't able to progress the ball well enough. We threw it away too much because we lacked technical finish here. Even our technically good players had an off day and just dropped the ball too many times. When we have center backs with a slow pace, Newcastle punished that. I thought when Newcastle were forced to create chances, it took them a long time and it was hard work, and very rarely it became a big chance. Maybe except for the set pieces where we were in the shape we were supposed to, or I believe so at the very least, right? I thought when Newcastle had the ball and we gave the initiative to them, I thought we did all right at slowing the game down, making them work for their chances. But on transition, when we gave over the ball on the turnover, Newcastle was brilliant. We were shocking. And again, my analysis is mostly based on the first half. I didn't get to watch the last 30 minutes when we were 3-0 down. I tuned out when I was reaching my mom's house. Didn't want to ruin the Christmas spirit at her house just by watching the last 30 minutes. So that's that's my analysis on that. But yeah, my main takeaway is when you get run over in midfield, like the defense is working overtime and mistakes are bound to happen. Did we make too many mistakes? Yes. But yeah, not a great game, but I believe our squad is better than this. And when we have Samari, Winks, and Ndidi back, I think the stability will be there.
I do agree. I think Sean's put a good comment here. I think he was right to try the formation. The problem of appointing him now means he's still learning about the personnel right now. But I have said here that I do believe that what this game showed us is that our overall squad quality is poor and it's going to need reinvestment in January. Now, we've heard that there are funds clear and I think we're going to need them. I think you'll have a good idea after seeing this game. I'll ask you,
just one short point on the squad, right? Remember where he's come from. He's a young coach in terms of his experience managing. What has he managed? A top team in Holland, PSV, where your second choice is most likely at the very least decent or maybe even a good player in that league. Man United, where the bench is stronger than our starting 11 at the very least. Play pound for pound, right? So I think this is something he has to learn and adapt as well, right? Because when you are those big clubs, you can send out the second team and you'd be able to maybe even still be slightly favorites. That's just not the case at Leicester, especially when it's the key players, not just the good players or the players who are starting, the key starting players in the lineup who are injured or suspended. So obviously, I think Ruud still has things to learn. This was certainly a lesson for him. It sounded like he realized some of his mistakes. He tried to tweak some of them tactically during the game. Sounded like in the post-game interview. He still has work to do in his coaching. And I think this is an eye-opener that when you're not at a top club, your second team won't beat everyone.
Yeah, I think I agree. And Costa, we're not going to lay into Ruud too much for this one. I think that can happen. And I think, look, Man City are missing their double pivot right now. And look what's happened to them. It can happen to the best of teams. Just want to point out another thing that I noticed that was kind of funny is then at 65 minutes, he pulled Hamza, who had a terrible game, and he put Conor Cody in as a CDM. Did it work? No, it didn't. But just thought it was interesting to show you that this is something that he tried in that game. And what's that a mark of? I think is because he recognized that he needed someone that was a better distributor of the ball. And that's where a lot of our problems lay. So there you go, trying to solve the problem. Now, that was all awful. So I wanted to end on something that I thought was actually positive. So you may not remember this because this defeat was so brutal and in our minds. But prior to that, we had a brilliant comeback against Brighton where we drew 2-2. And what I wanted to show you here is something that I actually thought was brilliant. And this is the first time that I'd seen something this good all season long under Ruud. And this was actually the thing that made me most excited. Look, we could have lost to Brighton as well. Brighton are a very good team as well. But what I'm going to show you now is a sequence. Smooth build-up is what I've called it. Oh, yeah, it's smooth. And what I want you to bear in mind here is I want you to look at the time. So as this move starts, it's 16 minutes and 17 seconds. And just appreciate what we're going to see here, because this is what modern football is all about. So we're going to get the ball. It's going to go to Samari. Samari is going to play it back to Victor. Victor gets on the ball and he's going to play it back to Cody. Now, you can see Brighton, what they're trying to set up here is they're trying to prevent us having these sort of passing lanes. You can see that João Pedro is blocking the pass here to Ndidi. You can see that both these players are taken out of the game as well. And you can also see that JJ knows that in this position, he's got to move over to this side to make some space to drag Brighton out of position and to open up more passing options and lines. It's going to go back to Mads. And you can see that now, because of the way that Justin's sort of dragging Matoma with him, that here's El Canus who's arrived on the scene. And now we've opened up this passing lane in between this space here. So Mads has got the ball. And you know what? He's not going to pump it long. He's going to play the right ball and he's going to play it into El Canus. And look, you can see the way that Brighton are is they're going to snap on him. He's going to have 3 men around him quickly. But because Justin has moved out to the right-hand side, what it means is Bilal can drop the pass into Justin. And he also knows that now he's played that pass, if he makes the run here, he can open up this passing lane. So Justin's going to have the ball and he can play the ball down the line. And now El Canus has got it. And so now you've got 4 Brighton people pushed right up high the pitch. And El Canus is going to be able to get on the ball. He's going to be able to face goal and he's going to be able to drive towards it. So this is already really good. Playing out of trouble, not just kicking it long, but letting the ball do the work. So Bilal's going to pick up the ball. I love this. He's going to scan the pitch and go, okay, what are my options? And what's the best option that I can play at this point in time? And he's going to go for this because he can see that Samare is free. So he's going to play a ball here. Even though he's going to fall over playing the pass, you can see here, he's going to find Samare. Samare's going to get the ball. And now you can see that because of this sequence, now the entire team can shift up the pitch together. So there's fewer gaps. We're in well set here and we can start our attack properly. So Samare's going to get the ball and he's going to play it now to Vestergaard or Vestergaard. I'm not pronouncing his name correctly. I'm still butchering it. Apologies. So it's going to go to Yannick and Yannick, we know he's good on the ball. So now he's going to drive the attack and look who's got forwards. It's your other favorite Danish player. It's the left back. Now, what's interesting is he's got the ball here, and now we could go for a passing triangle. So in an ideal world, you could go for Jordan Ayew and play the 1-2. However, in this particular example, because he can see that Ayew's being shadowed, he's going to go back. But that's okay. you don't need to rush the pass. I said we don't need to be impatient, right? We can be clever with the ball. So it's going to come back to Yannick. Yannick's going to play it into Ndidi, and now we've got the option to do the bounce pass here because him and Soumaré are really close to one another. But he's actually going to play it to Cody. Cody's going to get the ball. And what I love about Cody here is this is something that's really important in modern football, is you don't need to rush the pass. So he's going to get the ball here and wait because there's no gap here to play the ball in. And what he's going to do is he's going to wait to provoke the press from Brighton because it's coming. So he's still got the ball. He's still waiting. He's making it look like he's going to pass. And that's going to activate the trigger, which is João Pedro. And now that João Pedro is going to snap to him, now he can make the pass into Soumaré. And this is where this double pivot works so well. So because of that, Ndidi can adjust his position. I mean, Soumaré can play a first-time ball into Ndidi. Ndidi can get the ball, and now he can turn because of that space that's been generated, turn around, and now he can play in Bilal. And again, what I'm loving here is now, again, that the whole team, this is how you play the high line properly, right? Notice that throughout this entire sequence, Brighton haven't touched the ball once. This is all using the ball, all manipulating the ball, moving Brighton around and making them react to what we're doing. So El Khanous is on the ball. He's now going to play it out to the other side. So now we've tried going down one side and we're going to build going the other side. It's going to come to Casey McAteer. McAteer is going to play it into Khanous. Khanous is going to play it back here to Justin. Now you've got Soumaré, who's potentially free. Soumaré is going to receive the ball. Again, look, in the pocket, between the spaces. I really like this. He's got the ball. He's going to play it to Ndidi, who is free now. Again, after provoking the press. Ndidi's got the ball. He's going to play it to McAteer. McAteer's got it. He's going to see, okay, am I going to attack my fullback here or am I going to push back in? Either or. Perhaps here you could try and go one-on-one, but there's no real reward in doing it because Brighton are quite well set up. So instead, he's going to be clever and he's going to try and find El Khanous. Now, I think here, maybe El Khanous could go for the inside run here and maybe McAteer could chase down here, but it's okay. Again, you don't need to rush it. So he's going to play it back to Ndidi. Ndidi's going to get the ball. And what I'm just going to play through this sequence is this is what I like it. Look at how many players are playing the ball here in the Leicester team. Now look at the position. Cody's got the ball here and he's 10 yards inside the Brighton half, right? And now we're dictating pace again, right? Now Brighton are completely penned back. Even their strikers, they're having to defend back. Now they're in a deep block. And we've manipulated this. This is all through playing the ball. This is showing us that we don't always just have to smash the really good. Now this, I think, is kind of funny, right? So we play the ball to Yannick here. And Yannick actually decides, you know what? Even though they've got it, I'm actually going to play the ball back. And sometimes you can play the ball back. You might think, okay, why do that, right? But the thing is that we're going to try and attack them again and set them in their sequence. And I have to say, this is actually the only bad thing. And this is the one time we're impatient. So it goes to Ndidi. And I think the ball he should play here is into El Khanous. But this time round, he is actually going to try and find Christensen with this Hollywood pass. And he tries to go for it. And unfortunately, this time he gets dealt with it. So you might say, look, okay, that's actually been over 1 minute and 40 seconds where Leicester had the ball completely. Brighton didn't touch it once until the very end. And what have we even done with it? We haven't even generated the shooting opportunity. But the thing is we didn't see a single sequence like that all season long. In that particular move, I think every player other than Jamie Vardy touched the ball, right? And that was much more of a hallmark back to what Enzo was achieving last season. And look at what Enzo's achieving this season with Chelsea. So I think that if Van Nistelrooy can get us to play this way, and this is against Brighton, a team who at the start of this game were 5th place in the Premier League, that is extremely impressive. It all fell apart against Newcastle, but look, we were missing Soumaré and we were missing Ndidi. We didn't have Winks to step in either. That's where I felt it would went wrong. But I think that this is where we could be going. And that's what I want to, I guess, like, I am still hyped between Ruud because I'm saying that in modern football, you know, guys, that I've done some coaching certificates myself. And one thing that I've really noticed is just how the game has evolved. And this is what it's all about, is people realize that you have to be good on the ball. You have to be able to manipulate the opposition block around. And so whilst this might not end up in something, a team that's doing this is headed in the right direction. And that is encouraging for all of us to see. So look, with that, I'll answer some of your questions now as well. We've got a huge game against Wolves coming up. As it stands, we've got a 5-point gap here. I think this is a must-win game. Unfortunately, Wolves did sack their manager for the new manager bounce, but it looks like Mateus Cunha and Ryan El-Nouri are going to be missing for that game. So, you know, you can't ask for much more. But look, guys, thank you for listening there. And I'm going to go through some of your starred comments. But Andreas, you got any questions or anything you would like to add to the analysis?
I want to say, just to remember, right? I mean, there are no guarantees in football. A manager bounce isn't guaranteed. They could drop an absolute stinker. What I will say, and as you rightly highlight, right? We've seen more positives on the route than we've seen on all the games of Cooper, in my opinion. And even though it might have sounded a bit harsh in some of my analysis today, I want to make it very clear. I do
Danish
root all the
friends.
way. Ooh, Danish friends. Legendary clip. Absolutely legendary clip. But I think, I think there is still a long way to go. I think not just the players have much to learn. Root obviously has some things to learn as well, but he's already miles better than what we had at the Cuba, and I will give him all the time in the world to keep doing what he has so far, because one win, one draw, and a loss. If that happened every 3 games in a row, I'd be very happy. That would be all good. 4 points in every 3 games. I'd be fine with that.
So, Andreas, I think we've got some good questions from chat here. So, fair play, Froggy. You've been asking this all stream, and I said we would do this. So, Andreas, what do you think we should do to strengthen our defense?
Sign a couple new players, get Ricardo Pereira back from injury. And I think also a key thing here is time, because we have seen improvements in how we build up again. We know we can be good at it. We were it under Enzo. It's a bit of a different system, but it wants to achieve a bit of the same under Root, as you just rightly highlighted. And they need time to adapt to that, need time to learn to that. In terms of the 2 transfer target, I think Pascali, he's absolutely balling it out on PSV, right? I think he's brilliant. At the very least, his stats haven't seen the Eredivisie. There is a hidden gem, I want to say, in the Danish Super League, actually, that can play both the right back, center back, left back, has Champions League experience, has been a key player for the best team in that league. His contract is expiring in half a year, so he might be available to pick up for a few quid. He's not young. He's 28, but it's an absolute brilliant footballer that I will talk more about later when we have a transfer show. But I can drop his name. Kevin Dix. I think we should target him. He's not going to extend his contract by the looks of it. He's key in that Copenhagen defense. Can fill in the gap at right back. Can play centre back. Can even do left back if needed. He's good at progressing the ball. Good at playing with the ball. And he's not rapid, but he's a million times faster than what we have.
Interesting. I'm going to bring him up in a second. I'll take a look at him. David Hanko. I think we're smoking a bit of crack, Sean. If I'm being honest, he would be unbelievable. But he was linked with Atletico Madrid. But if we could get him, absolutely. I really like Boscali. I have to say that he is actually out of contract in the summer. I think he's 26, 27 years old. Has not played in the Premier League.
With him for a bit.
They were, but I think the difference is that I think with him, if he goes to Brighton, I don't think he's going to be first choice. Whereas I think if he comes to Leicester, he is going to be first choice. And I think if he signed for us and he had a clause in his contract where he could leave if we get relegated, I could see it happening. The Tajan Buchanan one, that's an interesting one. I know that he is normally a wide player, but can play at fullback. So I think, look, to answer your question, Froggy, what would I do? I think, for me, I'm surprised you didn't say it, but I mean, we need someone at the back who's got pace, in my opinion. Like, you cannot play. I know we signed Okoli, but he still seems a bit raw. I don't know who that player would be, but I just feel that, like, if you're playing a back 2 of Yannick Vestergaard and Connor Cody, you're asking for trouble. I do understand why Ruud's gone that way, because he probably thinks that Wout Fass is too sort of rash. Caleb Okoli, not quite there. In terms of like his overall understanding of the game. But it's like, if we play that way and you haven't got one fast player at the back, I think you're going to be in big trouble.
And just play devil's advocate to this, right? In terms of the pace thing. I think this is the first game where we've really seen the pace be the main issue. We've seen games, obviously, if you're faster, right? Or obviously under Kuba it was different. But in terms of under Ruud, I think there's been situations where if they were faster, they would have been in a bit of a better position. But I think this is the first game where we've been so bad on the turnovers that the pace got to be exploited and exposed. Because I wasn't sitting during the Brighton game. I wasn't sitting during the West Ham game complaining about the lack of pace. We knew it was a worry and that they could get hurt on it. And obviously teams will try and hurt us on it. But I think Newcastle was the first team to successfully stop us on the transition and make us bleed for the lack of pace in centre backs.
Yeah, just want to bring this one up as Duck's giving him a shout out to Kevin Dix from Copenhagen. And look at these stats. I've got to say,
he's probably been the best player in the Super League this fall, in my opinion. Consistent, can play both right back, centre back, and left back if needed. He's done that now with injuries. His contract is expiring in half a year. He's 28. He was rumored to the Serie A in the summer, but he was so valuable to Copenhagen that they wanted to keep him. But it doesn't seem like he's been extending. There seems to be a rift between him and the board now. I think if we want him in January, maybe £2-3 million, to be honest, just a bit of maybe his market value, maybe 5 million only, and we could get a player who might not take us to the very top, but could improve us immediately, and be a very, very crucial squad player for the next years. He is brilliant on the ball, brilliant at carrying the ball forward as well, to be honest. He's strong defensively. He has played against the top teams in the Champions League, beaten Man United, and he's been absolutely key to Copenhagen's success over the past few years. I'd hate to see him leave Copenhagen, but he will be doing that. That's everything. Every rumor is supporting what is he's even saying it himself. So if he is to go somewhere, let it be Leicester where I can enjoy him for a few more years.
Absolutely. Is he fast?
He is, as I said, he was normally a right back right before he came to Copenhagen and started playing centre back as well. And he isn't somewhere you scream. He's rapid, but he's by no means slow. I think, this might sound weird quoting FIFA language, right? But he'd be around the 75, 80 pace mark. Like he certainly gets the job done. It's very rarely he gets exposed on pace unless he's against someone who is absolutely rapid.
Wow, that sounds like an interesting option. Well, look, guys, just you're hitting the chat with all the options, which is great. But you know what? Let's save that for another show because I'm sure we're going to need it. So look, thank you so much. Thank you, Andreas, for joining. I hope you enjoyed it, everyone. Please do like, subscribe, and comment down below what you thought about this. Thank you for your time, Mr. Duck. That was amazing. And tune in tomorrow for Fox's Den on Blue Tinted Glasses. And we'll also be doing the team builder and hopefully a match preview of a huge game on Sunday against Wolves. Just quickly, because I'm not sure I'll see you. Andreas, how do you think the Wolves game will go? What's your score prediction?
I think it'll be a good game. This Newcastle game was a blip. It was a good lesson. We've learned from it more of our star players back. Maybe Winks as well, who could be able to come from the bench, if not even start, if indeed he isn't ready. Sumare is there. I think the players want the win. They know they need this win. And this will be our Christmas win. I think we'll win it. And I think quite comfortably. We'll dominate the ball, I expect. 2, maybe 3-0.
Okay, excellent. I'll go with that. I'll go for 2-0. I like the sound of that. So thank you so much, guys. And we'll see you next time on Blue Tinted Glasses. Bye-bye.